And what I would like to talk to you guys about today is how we as a company have started. Actually, it's been a year now. We've been teaching the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, through our speaking listening curriculum. So it's something that we do every day with all of our students, from those who are beginner learners of English to those who are going on to go to university or do English language exams. And I want to share some of the material that we have, some of the material bank that we've developed, and also talk about how we can introduce some of these conversations with our learners who may have not been so lucky as us to get to have these conversations with everybody else. So just a little bit about what I'm going to go through in the next half an hour or so. First of all, we'll have a bit of a group sharing session and think about why it's important to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm going to call them the SDGs just because it saves a little bit of time, and why it's really important for us to talk about it with language learners from all over the world, no matter what their background, no matter what their age. A little bit about why we started to think how important it was to incorporate it into the curriculum and not just as an add-on. So it's actually in our syllabus for everyone or every day. An example of our syllabus overview and a week breakdown, I've chosen week 5, which incorporates SDGs 8 and 10. I'm going to explore some activities for A2 and B2 learners. I'm going to get some activity suggestions from you guys, but also share some suggestions that we give our teachers. I've got some lovely photos of the SDGs in action and examples of taking them out and about in various cities across the UK and in Slima in Malta, using those and getting to use the language that they've developed in class. And then maybe some thoughts to take away. And hopefully we'll come away with some shared learning and some shared ideas that you can be going out and doing with your students in the next few months, in the next few weeks. And also, I think when we're talking about sustainability, it's something we have to do together. It's part of teamwork. It's not something we can do as individuals. So it's very much a group effort here. So let's start off with, and this is where I'm going to throw back to you all a little bit, and I'm going to employ the use of the chat thread, which you've been using so fantastically so far today. So let's think about introducing the Sustainable Development Goals to language students. And here I'm going to use language students, meaning students who are learning English as a second or third or additional language. And my question is, why is it important to talk about these Sustainable Development Goals with our students? Please write your short thoughts in the chat thread. I'm going to just have a little look at them myself as well to make sure I can see what's going on. Well, they cater for all aspects of life. Alina, I really, really love that one. Talking about global challenges. Fantastic here, connecting English with real life. Rachel's written great vocab. I 100% agree with you, Rachel. It introduces vocab to students in different levels that they might not normally get access to until they're a much higher level of English. Responsible for helping them all. It's the future. Sustainability is so much bigger than the environment and climate change. And I agree, sustainable development, sustainability is not just about recycling. And I think that's sometimes a misconception that lots of people have. I'm assuming nobody here, but that sustainability is only about sort of making sure you put things in the right bin and you label things and you don't photocopy quite as much. And it very much isn't that. It's sort of how we can incorporate this into our life. Roger, I really like what you just said there about being more responsible citizens. And everything that I've just said aloud and everything that I'm sure you'll continue to put in the chat is exactly one of the reasons why we wanted to incorporate the SDGs into our teaching and make it part of every day. So it's not a tag on. It's not just, oh, make sure you put your bottle in the right bin. Try not to photocopy quite as much. When something becomes part of your life and part of your everyday, it's a lot easier to keep doing. It becomes a lot more sustainable to continue. So here are some possible responses. These are ones that I have put together from conversations with lots of other educators, also conversations with our students as well. English is a global language. It's a language spoken by so many people all over the world. Those of us like myself who are native speakers are very lucky that lots of people want to come and learn my language. And if we teach about the Sustainable Development Goals in English, it allows global conversation. They also promote things like interdisciplinary learning, empathy, global citizenship. They help to provide solution-orientated approach to difficult topics. I think for a lot of people nowadays, particularly for some of our young people, and with the rise of social media, everything that goes on online and things that we're not always able to verify very easily, having somewhere where we can find solutions rather than just problems and a way to share solutions is very important. We can avoid some of these more catastrophic consequences of failing to achieve or at least partly achieve some of these SDGs. And it helps people rather than just sitting on your phone and doom scrolling, it helps us to prepare for a more uncertain future and to create an outline of how to go along with everything. And I really believe in number 8 in particular. It is important to talk about challenging issues in a safe environment, and it's really important that people feel that they can share their point of views and they can learn more and they can educate each other and us as well within a safe environment, and know it's okay to talk about things which are difficult and not just, oh no, we don't talk about that. That's something that we don't want to, we don't talk about here. And making sure that people are comfortable and safe and able to talk about things that are really important for everybody all over the world. And this is an article, this is a poem actually, but that Alan Malley, a great educator, wrote. It's published in the Sustainable Development Goals publication run by the British Council. I think this was in 2017. And it's all about what is a teacher. And so what's a teacher? What do you do? I teach. Who do you teach? What do you teach people? What do you teach them? English. Oh, you mean grammar, verbs, nouns, pronunciation, etc., etc. That too. And then it goes on to say, well, what do you mean that too? Well, I also try to teach them how to think and feel, to show them inspiration and aspiration and cooperation and participation and consolidation and innovation. And I think this, I really like this poem. It makes me think about conversations with my father, because often when I say, oh, what do you do? He says to me, what do you do? And I must say, I'm a teacher. That's the end of the conversation. But all of us who work in education know that the word teacher is a very small word for a lot of many different things. And you wear a lot of different hats, and it's really an umbrella term. So I think the responsibilities of being an educator, working in education in 2025 means that we need to be putting the Sustainable Development Goals and sustainability and green education right at the front of our teaching. So going on to a little bit about SDGs and BSc education. So what we have developed here at BSc is a multi-level interdisciplinary materials bank for our teachers, which is aimed at promoting discourse on the Sustainable Development Goals. So the overall aim of this materials bank is to share and promote sharing of different cultural experiences. And by that, I don't mean simply UK, I mean from whatever background somebody comes from, and different views on global issues while increasing empathy and from both students and from teachers. So our materials bank is diverse. It's constantly updated. I was updating it this morning. And it means that our teachers are not having to search for material to shoehorn into a topic, and they can concentrate on engagement and developing ideas and what their students are interested in and what they have a particular focus on. There are different topics across levels, so from A1 all the way to C2 and to IELTS and academic. So it allows variation when we have long-term students who are studying with us for 6 months or potentially even for a year, and for depth. There's level appropriate. So we have looked at what kind of language is more accessible for students who are elementary learners, who are A1 and who are A2. And we've also looked at things that students who are looking towards doing an IELTS exam and the language they might need to use there. This is where the SDGs are fantastic, because so many of the topics that come under the SDGs also fit into IELTS topics very easily. So they lend themselves really well to that IELTS speaking part too. We encourage conversation, basic dialogue, role play, and then maybe at a higher level, we look at getting our students to debate, to research, to present, to discuss, to examine, to go out into the world and actually find out for themselves. And we promote active, safe, inclusive conversations across all CEIFR levels, allowing our teachers choice and freedom to expand. So we really love when our teachers have immersive lessons, when our teachers take the students out on excursions, and also when they produce projects to share what they've learned and also to promote further knowledge and further engagement outside class as well. So this is a look at our overall syllabus. And I know that the writing is incredibly small and you can't see it, but the reason for showing you this is to show that we have put every single one of those 17 SDGs into a week of our conversation, of our speaking and listening curriculum. So at BSc, our students have speaking and listening lessons every day. They have a timetabled lesson with their teacher, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, which is completely devoted to speaking and listening. And this is in addition to their morning classes, which might have a more grammar or Lexis focus. And what we've done is we have made sure that there is a speaking and listening focus, an SDG focus for every day, for every week, so that there are 5 weeks with 2 SDGs and the other 7 weeks with 1 SDG. So every SDG gets covered. And it's a rolling syllabus. So once we've reached week 12, if it's a 12-week term, we go straight back to week 1. And if it's a 13-week term, we have an extra project for week 13, which is a sort of video project where students get to choose an SDG of their own, and they can promote it, creating a short TikTok style video. And when I looked at this syllabus to start off with, I looked at related topics that might be more ELT friendly, at least to begin with, that would relate to each of the SDGs. And I broke them down into topics which are maybe more suitable for A1, and then topics which would be more suitable for all the levels up to academic and IELTS. And this means that if we have a student who is with us, let's say for 6 months, so they would potentially go through the syllabus twice. They would hopefully start with us, maybe they would start with us at B1, but by the second time they went through the syllabus, they would be in B2. So although they would do the overall topic that was the same, the overall SDG that's the same, the topic that they'd look at, the individual components would not be exactly the same. So they'd be building on language that they'd learned from before. So there's lack of repetition. It makes it more interesting, hopefully, for the teachers as well. And even if a teacher is teaching exactly the same topics that they taught 12 weeks before, we're fantastic. We've got a fantastic bunch of teachers with us, and they're always adding in ideas. They're always adding in material, and it's not set in stone. So the topics are there as guidance for our teachers to use overall. Also, we have a syllabus guide for each one of those weeks with suggestions of activities that will relate to the SDGs without being sort of too, oh, you must teach exactly about climate change because it's week 8 and that's climate action week. It might be that they have a suggestion for a digital poster to create or a survey to conduct in the city where the college is based. So let's have a look at an example week breakdown. It should be really easy for the teachers to use. They choose topics from the level within they teach. They're encouraged to plan as well with their class. So if they've got somebody who is particularly interested in a certain topic or they're planning for an exam, we can make sure that the activities that they're doing in their speaking and listening is really focused towards that that particular aim for the students. So every single week, when they click on their week 1 or their week 2, we'll see a breakdown of folders looking just like this with a lovely rainbow pattern. And in each folder, there are material ideas for every single level according to the topics on that overview that I showed you before. And also in teacher guidance, they have uh, suggestions for that session. So suggestion how they could organize their week. So for example, on Monday, an introduction to the topic. So that could be a TED Talk. It might be a video clip. It could be a podcast. And all of these are shared in the material bank. It could be giving the teacher free rein to use something that they found themselves. Maybe they've seen a really interesting article on the BBC, or they found something in their local newspaper that they'd like to change. They'd like to include. Um, Perhaps on Tuesday, they might do some pronunciation or looking at phrases that works on that particular topic, or delve into that topic in a little bit more depth. On Wednesday, they might do a communicative activity. It could be promoting a class discussion, maybe a game, maybe some role play. Thursday, we might go on to some listening activities, a song, YouTube video. I'm a big fan of a running dictation. I think that's fantastic for practicing lots and lots of different skills. And then on Friday, we might do some consolidation. Now, this could be where the whole college comes together and students of all sorts of different levels showcase what they've been working on that week. Or it could be a big sort of a big discussion, a little bit like a speed dating, but with some speed discussion. Or it might be looking at reflections on the week, what they've learned from the week, what they'd like to do next time, what they're going to take on board to do in the future. We had some fantastic work with some of our students in Brighton the other week, and they presented their discoveries and their learnings from the week after in that Friday session. So again, it was involving their speaking and listening after and showing off to everybody what they've been able to do. So this is where I'm going to again come back to you guys a little bit and get some ideas from you. So we're going to have a little look at week 5 in our syllabus. So week 5 is one of the 5 weeks which has 2 SDG focus, and I put together decent work and economic growth, so that's SDG 8, and reduced inequalities, which is SDG 10. Okay, and I've made it a little bit bigger here are from the syllabus. So some ELT friendly topics that might be able to be used for week 5. So jobs, money, the economy, thinking about access to higher education, that comes under that reduced inequalities, access to healthcare, resources, migration, discrimination, the workplace, refugees. And so for me, these are all topics that could be covered in many different English language textbooks, or might be covered in many different English language regular programs. And how can we get these into our speaking and listening curriculum? How can we make this the focus of that week? So for every week of the syllabus, there is an overall materials folder. You will have seen that on one of my previous slides. And in that overall materials folder, there are lots of things that the teachers can use for students whichever level. So there might be some conversation questions. There are some fast facts and infographics, and these come directly from the UN website. These are great for IELTS conversations. You put it up on the whiteboard and you get the students talking, okay, look at this as global economy recovery continues, but on a slow trajectory. So this is post-pandemic. What do you notice about the bar chart? Can you give me some language for the bar chart? Does this surprise you? Do you think it's similar in your country? Do you think it's very different in your country? Why? And straight away you're using real life graphs and things which are a language which is part of the sustainable development with students who are preparing for an exam. Also in the overall materials folder, there are lots of video links. There are video links which are more lower level friendly as well as high level friendly. There are some statistics. There's quite a lot of infographics in there. I really like encouraging teachers to put a picture on the board and get the students to talk about it and what they see. And I think that's a really great activity to get students talking and to bring up lots of fantastic vocabulary, no matter what the level of the class is. So let's continue on with week 5 and having a look at A2. So A2 learners, so these are our learners. They've been maybe in the UK, or they've been learning English for a little while. They have a bit of conversational English. They can get by. They can order a coffee in the coffee shop. They can go to McDonald's. But we want to give them a little bit more vocabulary. We want to encourage them to talk about some of these sustainable development goals, and some of these sustainable topics as well. So within A2, our smaller topics are considering others, migration, our culture, and professions. And what I would really like to see shared in the chat box are some ideas of speaking or listening activities, just either short ones or something which might take a little bit longer, that could be used with A2 learners relating to these particular topics. I'm going to have a little look and see what I've got in the chat box. So, for example, I'm thinking about migration. It might be that we're talking with a student about the journey maybe that their family has made to come to the UK if they're learning in the UK. So how, looking at the route that they've taken on migration and the kind of language that we've got there. It might be that somebody's talking about jobs and professions and different roles in jobs for students and for people who are learning English. What other activities could we get for some of these topics, do you think? Oh, I like the considering others. That's a fantastic one. Yeah, role play based scenario. So you might have somebody, it has one situation, and a person has to consider it from a different point of view. Okay. Yeah, comparing cultures. Yes, if you've got students from very different cultures in your class, comparing how the role of a teacher is in Malaysia compared to the role of a teacher in Angola, for example. Okay, maybe comparing different types of transport, how somebody might travel across a country to get from one country to another country. What other ones could we think of? Yeah, what jobs might be available in the new green economy? I really like that, Chris. Lots of group discussions. Just going to take this off here so I can share with you some of the ideas that we had. So some of the ideas that are part of our materials bank are to create a class quiz based on workplace rules. And this could be a Kahoot quiz, perhaps, or it could be that students have to write different clues from different points of view. Um, Creating some TikTok video clips on an aspect of a culture. So this could be part of a culture that they already know, or it might be that you are getting students to investigate a part of a culture that they don't know already, something that somewhere completely different. Compare working days. What does a working day look like in your country compared to a working day in your country, for example? That was a great suggestion we had from you guys as well. Playing the game Taboo using professions. I love Taboo. Um, and then some longer projects, and these could take place over a couple of days. Somebody mentioned the one large lesson, or there is some fantastic stuff out there that we've got in our materials bank. In the British Council, there's a Be a Positive Messenger challenge. It focuses on refugees and migration, and it's a really interesting way of talking about people who are often sidelined and maligned and maybe not talked about very well in the media and government and by governments, and encouraging us to think about looking on people as people and not as not in such a negative way. Promoting class discussion. Class discussion is great, but on what? Okay, what does it mean to be in another person's shoes? Can we find an example of when you had to put yourself in somebody else's shoes and why this is an important thing? And then again, as we said before, comparing working days across cultures and professions and what can we learn from others. Okay, fantastic. Getting the idea now. So now let's move on to B2. Again, same week. So we've got that SDG 8 and 10 focus and topics for B2. So under the same overall SDG umbrella, we're looking at inequality online. We're looking at unusual jobs. And we're also looking at workplace equality. So can you share some possible activities, some possible ideas that could be used within these 3 topics? I think, Galina, in your answer to your question about how is migration connected with sustainability, I think that most things are connected with sustainability. Um, you had to look at the reasons why people have migrated. It's not always somebody migrating for job purposes. And even with job purposes, are people migrating because jobs are not available where they are? So there's a lot of sustainable links with migration. And I think that also goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning, that sustainability is not just about recycling. It's a lot more than that. Oh, I love the unusual job of a chocolate taster. Yeah, availability of chocolate, transport, fair trade. And I think with all of these topics that we're talking about, it's not always about hammering in. We must talk about sustainable development. We must talk about green issues. It must be abundantly clear every single minute of the day. Yes, it is in there, but we're hopefully doing it by osmosis. So it's not that we're preaching all the time, but it becomes so much part of our everyday life and so much part of what we're doing in our in lessons that it's natural, and it's not unusual. Keep coming back to that one. So let's share a few more of the ideas that we had here. And when I say ideas, these are things that our teachers are currently doing and have been doing for a while with our students. Thanks,
Hannah,
Chris. Are you telling me it's 30 minutes?
I am. Thank you very much.
No problem at all. Thank you. Um, so one is talking about song lyrics, okay, talking about what song lyrics might be appropriate, what might not, real world examples, looking at social media, okay, looking at inequality online, looking at social media use for under 18s. I know there's been quite a lot of legislation going through in Australia about what students can and what young people can access under 18. Thinking about leadership and sustainable leadership, building on what Georgia was saying earlier. The idea of an entrepreneur. What is an entrepreneur? I have a lot of students say to me they want to be an entrepreneur, but not so many say they actually know what an entrepreneur is. Okay, different types of entrepreneurs. A green entrepreneur, how can you introduce, how can you make what you're doing more environment, not just environmentally friendly, but more friendly to everybody as well. About being innovation, pitching your innovative ideas to each other, a bit like a mock Dragon's Den. Dragon's Den is a program we have here in the UK. We have 5, I think it is, very, very wealthy people and people who have great ideas go and pitch their ideas in the hope of getting some investment. I think it's called Shark Tank in the USA, but we have our long running Dragon's Den series here in the UK. And also jobs of the future, thinking about what roles will exist in 20 years' time that we don't have in 2025. I used to be a primary school teacher, and in my first group of students now who are now who are now of adult age. There's quite a few of them who are looking at jobs that were not in existence when I was teaching them. So really thinking about ways to incorporate language that they'll need, that students will need in and outside class, and making it part of everyday life. Um, so onto this slide, which has come up a couple of times. So just some examples of our students using the SDGs and making it part of conversation. So we've had debates on consumption. That was one right in the middle there for SDG 12. That was a fantastic debate we had in our London college. Looking at innovation at the National Museum of Scotland, students from our Edinburgh College went to. Quite a lot of radio interviews or shorter conversations for International Women's Day. Visiting places like the Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh and the London Aquarium. We've done quite a lot of collecting for local food banks and looking at local markets and how we can help share the resources that we have. And the final point down there is exploring local charity shops and finding out what they do. I was really interested by a group of students that we have in our Brighton College at the moment who hadn't really understood the concept of a charity shop before. So we actually went and interviewed some of the owners and the people who run charity shops on London Road in Brighton. And they got to find out a lot more about not just the importance of recycling and reusing clothes as well as other items but what they can actually get from charity shops themselves. A couple of them came out with English language books, which I was very pleased about. So lots of things and lots of ongoing action that our students and our fantastic teaching team are doing. And just a little bit of feedback so far. We've had some really great feedback from our students and from our teachers. I think something which I haven't got on here, but I can share from a lesson I did last week with a group of A2 learners. And we actually were talking about innovation. And they told me that they were really excited to use vocabulary that they wouldn't normally use. So the word innovation came up because we were talking about technology. And it was great to see them using vocabulary and lexis that they wouldn't normally try. Making mistakes, but that's okay. But really trying to use English and being very proud of what they'd learnt. I think the teachers are finding having a materials bank that can be used as the basis, the genesis of lessons, really useful as well. It means they don't need to go hunting, but if they come across something, it's fantastic as well to be sharing resources. And just last thing before I finish off today, just some ideas to take away. So week 12 of our program, we focus on the last two SDGs, so peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnerships to the goals. And just as just something for you to take away with yourselves, you're very welcome to put it in the chat box as well. What conversations should we be having with our students that we're not having already? How can we embed, or how could you think about embedding these two SDGs into your teaching, learning, and organizations without sort of, forcing it in there? How can we make it a lot more natural? And how could one or both of these SDGs be incorporated into an excursion or an immersive lesson or an activity in class? Just something to take away and to think about. And as was mentioned before, there's lots of fantastic material out there, for on the British Council, National Geographic, Topic Talks, TED Talks, The World's Largest Lesson. The Economist has some fantastic material too. There's lots and lots of things out there. And I really do encourage you all to go out there and share ideas with your students and make it part of your everyday life and teaching. I'm always very happy to chat to people if anyone wants to have a further conversation about what we've been able to do. As I say, we've been doing it since April 2024. So it's been just over a year now we've had it in all of our colleges across the UK and in Malta. And it's a really exciting program, which we're very proud of.